So I wanted to do a follow-up on the Pixis. It's the second week that I'm using this camera and I'm finding new things every time I get to use it. Now, one of the reasons I got excited to get the Pixis was the fact that it was a box camera and the ability to be able to rig this out in so many different ways. Now, when it came down to the side screen, obviously everybody was saying how much of a terrible idea it was. The truth is, I actually really enjoy using it, and I found a really nice way to kind of take advantage of that and the open gate and use this camera in a really fun handheld way, which works extremely well in a 4K timeline. In the past, I've used a handle that's super cheap, but really brought something to the table for me as a point of contact on some of my older cameras as well. But I think that it fits perfectly on this camera. Now, what I want to go over is basically all the different rigging options for this camera. And the one thing that really annoys me about buying cages is that once you move on or the body changes, that cage system is kind of obsolete and you can't use it. So this time I hope I've learned from my lessons, and I bought parts and pieces that I can use literally on almost any camera. So saving myself the money future-wise and also keeping the cost down. There are some great cages out there if that's something that you want to commit to. But right now I built this out part by part. But let's get back into why I think this camera is super interesting with that side screen on. So I don't know if you're familiar with like an old Bolex camera and just the way that feels and operates. So putting specifically this handle will make such a difference. So let me show you what that looks like. So having a handle like this for a small kind of easy setup like this, but also having the screen showing up top. So now I can literally use this as this really lightweight camera. And, you know, I played around with this and it was so much fun to shoot with that it's kind of crazy, and keeping this super light. The one thing that I noticed is I'm going to be using the open gate, and that gives me the ability to have obviously a 4K timeline to use it in, and I'm getting the full kind of centered readout and I can go top to bottom. I also noticed that the rolling shutter wasn't as bad in this format the way that it is, which that's a plus. Again, handling the camera with this little handle, putting a lightweight battery on here, I think does a phenomenal job. But this is just one of the many reasons why I really enjoy using this camera. The fact that I can rig this up in so many ways, keep it light, and then have all my adapters to adapt any lenses. I've used my PO lens, FD lenses, Canon lens. I'll put all the descriptions for the adapters that I've used, and they're really tight. There isn't any wiggling. And then using a follow focus, if I wanted to add a follow focus to this, I can really easily and keep it light because of all the mounting points that I have going on here. So let's get into the video and talk about all the specific pieces I use to build it out, from being a lightweight kit all the way to a full-on production kit, but being able to use parts that I'll be able to use on future cameras or different cameras without having the necessity of having a cage, and keeping it as light as possible. And taking it apart, putting it back together literally takes minutes. The best part of it all, I chose specific accessories that only use this little Allen key. So that's all you need to bring to be able to strip apart the whole entire setup or put it together. So one key, super easy, and that makes it honestly a pleasure to put together, take apart, and easy to use. So if you want to adapt this handle onto the Pixis, I typically will use this middle here just to have a better situation, have it balanced out, and you'll just need a little adapter that goes right onto the 1/4-20 here. Other than that, that's all you need to get this thing moving. So I think starting, if you want to go really light, you want to start with at least some sort of top plate. And the reason I say that is, you know, after a while, you're going to start wearing these connections down on top of the camera. So as I mentioned before, I try to use all the accessories basically that are using one size Allen key, so I don't have to have a ton of tools with me when I'm out shooting if I need to take it apart or do whatever. But having this top plate is really nice. What I try to do is kind of make it flush to the back here, and that's going to be the beginning point for me to do something basic here. So again, just tighten up this. It's a small rig, kind of universal top plate. And then here I have these Condor kind of cable management pieces. They also use the same Allen key style here, which is really nice. And I always use this for cable management. So now that we've got our top plate, I've got quite a few decisions that I can make here. If I want to keep this extremely light, but still, able to kind of manage and use some sort of side handle, the only time that I use something would be for obviously the screws. So I'm going to use this piece to get on the side of the camera here. And this has like 2-pin locking on it. And this is going to connect basically my side handle. As much as this box camera is, it's got a nice little amount of weight to it. It is still light as is right now. And I want to be able to kind of hold that weight. So I went with a small rig. This one is a rosette version. And it has a clamp that I got here that can go on a NATO rail. So I can use that in different places. What I love about all these specific parts is I can use it for different cameras. I'm not locked into, one specific camera. And if I decide to move on to, a different body or the body style changes, then I'm kind of not stuck with a box full of, parts that I'll never use again. And that's the thing with cages as well. You buy these cages and then that's it. When you're done with that camera, if you want to sell it, whatever, you're selling it. So you're losing money on this stuff. Not saying you should focus on that. And if you need a cage and that's what works for you, get it. But I like parts that I can use on future cameras or different style cameras and not feel like I just spent it on this. I know it's ridiculous, but that's something I think about. So we've got this top plate. Now you've got some choices. You could put a NATO rail up here and then add a handle and then monitor. But if you want to keep it really, I would say like low profile, you could mount the monitor here. Again, swivel, small rig, adapter. I've had this for a really long time and it's gone through so many different camera bodies and it works really well. And again, using the same, the same exact Allen key for this. Let me just tighten that up a little bit. So this will give it that low profile because, once you start putting on the handle up top, it brings the monitor really high. So this way it keeps it at a low point, which I think is interesting. Again, if I have a side handle, I'm okay with that. If I didn't, I would need that top handle. So this is what we've got going on. Now, if you wanted to mount some sort of NATO rail and bring this up, if you wanted to, you can do that. Now, this one's really interesting because it's got the 15 mil rail, which I always use for the follow focus. So I kind of have to use this just because if I decide not to use the rails on the bottom for any given reason, or I want to use shorter rails just for like, let's say the V-mount, battery mount, then I don't use that. Again, using the same exact Allen key. So let's put this on just so we have it kind of ready. And I can put that pretty much anywhere on this base plate. And if you're wondering what this monitor is, this is again a BM5 II, I believe, from Portkeys. It's been such a great monitor. Also had this for a couple of years. It does have Bluetooth connectivity, which is really nice. So I can hit the trigger on the monitor without having to touch the record button on the body itself. So right now we've got this kind of unit built up. And what we want to do is we want to add a base plate to this, which is going to be important because we're going to need to mount this on a tripod at some point. So this is what we'll do next. So this uses the same Allen key for everything. So now that I have this, I can mount some rails down here, and I can also use this little, mini dovetail which is nice, especially when the camera gets a little bit heavier and I need to kind of position the camera's weight back and forth, whether I have a V-mount or a heavy lens up front. It's easy enough to kind of work with this and get it working and going the way that I need to. So let's just lock that in for now. Make sure that's all locked. Okay, perfect. All right, so now I've got this. We've got the dovetail, we've got our rails down here, which we can add. And reason for using the rails here is if I'm not gonna be using these batteries, basically, you know, if I'm using these, I'm not necessarily gonna need the rails because I'm gonna use one rail up here for the follow focus. But if we did something like this, you know, this is what we've got right now. Now, I could use a rail up top if I wanted to, and I use this PD Movie follow focus. I really love this. It's got LiDAR. It works really well, and if you align it properly next to the lens or the center point of the lens, whether it's on top or on the right or left of it, you get pretty good results. So we can put that straight up here. Just open this up. And that goes something like that, right? So that goes kind of close to the lens. I'll just hold that here for a second. That goes there, works just fine. And it still keeps this light enough. Now I don't have the top handle, but I am doing a lot more of this. So far it's light enough. I can handle this, not a problem. We could add this V-mount adapter on the back. And again, we have a top handle that we can always kind of put back on here if we choose to, and then connect the monitor on top, or just have, you know, the handle on its own there. The only problem with that is you won't be able to kind of push the monitor that, you know, that much forward. You could get away with it if you did it just, you know, with a little bit of space. Again, it was meant more the monitor would go here. So let's leave that for now just to see what that looks like, and then we'll try the V-mount battery situation. But this pretty much, you know, sets up the camera to be as kind of lightweight as possible, but rigged out the way that you need to. Let's try some lenses and just show you what that looks like with a few lenses. If I'm using, again, one of these smaller FD lenses, this should go on no problem. And then I can use this. So this is pretty, like a pretty small package and pretty lightweight, to be honest. If I wanted to work with this, this is gonna be fairly straightforward and easy to use with something like this. So that's pretty much it in this really small form factor. Now, if I wanted to use V-mount, balance this camera out, use a bigger lens, let's see what that looks like. So we'll bring this up. Let's try some of these PL lenses. Okay, so we're gonna use a PL adapter, and this is from DZO Film. I think it's called the Octopus. Let's just screw that on. This starts bringing and adding a little bit of weight, but if you're using PL lenses, you're gonna love this adapter. I've used it on my FX3 as well. And it does a great job mounting the lenses and keeping everything kind of balanced and not moving around too much. Okay, so once you lock in the lens, you should be good to go. And then again, I can get my follow focus here, move this guy forward, align everything here. I can even push this out just slightly a little bit more, tighten that up over here, bring this here. And then I am good to go. So this is a nice little production package. You know, handles the weight pretty well. It's nice to have this handle, so I could go handheld so I can grab it here. Really just, you know, point of contact being kind of against me. And it does a nice job of balancing so far, but it is getting a little bit heavier as we go here. So just to touch on this PD Movie follow focus system, this is a LiDAR-based system, and every single lens you can kind of color code or whatever, you know, so this lens specifically is a red lens, so it knows already the settings of this lens. So if I, you know, start changing, and you'll see as I'm focusing on different things, it will adjust based off those settings that I already set up, obviously when I first set this up. So This is a basic package. Now, if I wanted to power this thing through these batteries, how do I do that with the monitor? Right now it's powering the actual camera. That's not a problem. So let's do that. Let's start connecting some things to see what's what. All right, so this cable actually came with the monitor itself, but this I believe is, yeah, this one's a 4-pin LEMO that works on this one. So this goes in the back of the monitor, just like that. So that gets hooked up into the power back here. And this is where I kind of start using these cable management things here. So I want to make sure it stays out of my way and that I have enough cable to just kind of literally attach back here. And always make sure that you're, attaching this, making sure that it fits into the battery correctly, that there's always a little curve in the V-mount. So now that's kind of good and powered. Now you'll notice I don't have any of the SDI stuff connected, but if I turn this monitor on right now, it should turn on, and then we'll turn camera on as well. So you want to power these things first. And then what we'll do is, here, the monitor is coming on, and then what we'll do is we'll power on the camera. So if I go in here, power on the camera, camera should come on. Great. And then what we want to do is connect the SDI. Now, you can go from camera to, to the monitor, but either way, you want these things powered on. So I'm going to connect that into the in SDI into the monitor. Again, feed it through my cable management here, and then I'm going to go right to the back of the camera, and I should be able to get a feed now on my camera now, which, works how it should. So one little thing that happens sometimes, and I don't know if this is something they can fix or you can set up in your presets, but if you see here the menu itself, when you switch from different kind of settings, sometimes the monitor won't come on, and I always get that kind of like, feeling in my gut like, oh my gosh, like something's wrong with the monitor connections or the SDI doesn't work. It literally is. If you go to the monitor settings here, and you have to double check, but you'll see that you have to make sure for SDI, make sure if it's the SDI connection, obviously, you want to make sure that it's set up to 1080 if the monitor is 1080. So now it should bring the monitor back up like it just did. So now that we're all set up, we're going to get open on this, and then let's see if we can get this monitor to record for us. I think I had it on the lock position, but if I click record, if I can get my finger on that, let's see if it's going to do the recording. Is it recording? It is recording. I've got record on there. Let's turn that off. Did that work? Yes, it did. And it's recording now again. So it's really difficult, I have to say, with the Pixis, with this record button being on this side. You tend to kind of, forget if it's on or off, and you're constantly like looking to see if it's on or off. That's the one thing I wish, obviously I think once the Pixis monitor comes out, it's going to make things a lot better, because I really want to make sure that I'm getting some sort of visual that I'm recording, that recording's in process, because I feel like that's how you can make some mistakes and miss some shots on a shoot, being that you're operating the camera and there's so much going on. Sometimes it's something you really want to make sure that you have that setting. So let's see what this camera looks like if I hook it up with a V-mount adapter in the back and how all that power kind of plays in. So here's what we're going to do is we're going to follow the protocol. What I'll do is I'm going to pull out the SDI the same way I brought it in. I'm going to pull it out from there. Now, I didn't turn the monitor off or the camera off, which seems kind of counterintuitive because you figure you want to turn the power off so it doesn't fry anything, but that's just the way it is. I'm turning my monitor off now, and then I will turn off the camera now. So now everything is off. I'm going to wait a second. I'm going to disconnect this from here. So I've got right now only one piece of power coming from the monitor, and the battery is obviously powering the camera. Let's put that battery away. Let's put this away. In order to power the camera into the V-mount, we're gonna need a 2-pin LEMO. So this is gonna be a male version going into a D-tap. We're gonna plop that in here gently. Okay, so that's in there now. So now we've got 2 power things that are happening on here. So let's add some rods, and then this way we can get some of the V-mount setup done properly. Let's move some of these cables over so you can see what's going on. So now I'm ready to put in the V-mount. Now you have to leave enough room for clearance for your time code, for your SDI, and for your power. And I'm using this, which I will leave a link below, but it's the Neatzy V-mount adapter. It's got 2 D-tap on the left and on the right. It's got USB-C on here and also a 5-volt kind of plug-in. So, you know, this has worked in the past for me with other cameras. Nothing ever bad happened, so I continued using this one. I'm hoping that, you know, they may come out with some sort of more regulated versions of these, but again, I've never had a problem with this one at all. And I used it on the FX3. I did use it on the Blackmagic 6K as well. All right, so let's go to the connection. So this is coming from the monitor. Again, this is gonna go on here. I wanna make sure that the curves kind of match. I'm not shoving it in and it's an awkward plug-in. And this one is coming from the 2-pin LEMO from the camera itself. So you can use any battery that you want. The micro batteries or the kind of in-between batteries work really, really well. They're flush, they're light enough. This one's the 99 version of the Momen battery. It's been really nice. It's got, you know, D-tap connections. It's got USB, USB-C, all sorts of plugs. You have a lot of options with this battery. Again, you can choose whatever battery you want. I've used this for a while. It's great. It gives me exactly what the amount of power on here and actually down to the hour. It's been pretty accurate, and it's a long-lasting battery. It uses Panasonic battery internals, so it does really, really well. So let's plug this in. Let's do this all nice. Once you hear that click, you should be good to go. So again, we're gonna look at this all set up here. It's showing me the power. What we're gonna do first is we're gonna turn the monitor on. SDIs are disconnected. Let's wait for this monitor to pop on. Obviously the monitor takes longer to boot than the actual camera itself. Camera boots so fast, which is really nice and refreshing. So let's click that on. Camera should boot up. Okay, we're all good. We've got picture. Now we've got to connect these SDIs. So again, I'm going monitor, connect. I'm going now back into the back of the camera, making sure that's going in properly. There we go. Connecting that. And now I have everything I need, and that's being powered with this camera. Now this is being powered with this battery. Battery will tell me how much time, you know, in minutes I have left. So I have an hour and 25 left in this battery, and I believe it's like 67 or 65% left. So that's really helpful in a shoot, knowing when to swap that out. Am I getting a battery readout on the actual camera? I am, but I'm not getting a pure percentage. I'm getting a voltage. Let's see if we can change that. And I'm not sure I can. I'd have to double check, but this is what we've got going on at the moment. And this is typically what I would use on like a full kind of production day, I would say, just to get me going. Now, if I wanted to use a larger, you know, lens, or, you know, use something that's, you know, I use this Canon lens as well, and that has the L to EF mount adapter on it. This keeps it pretty light. I really like that. And this lens is just, you know, the 24 to 105 is such a great lens. I know everybody loves the 24 to 70. I like having the reach on this lens. I have filters for it for NDs, or I can go with these big kind of heavy cine lenses. These are zooms though. They're really nice, and I've got a lot of range. I got a pair of these. This is a 50 to 135, and then I've got one that is going to be this guy here, and they match identically. They're identical, like all the settings are exactly the same. Their weight is almost the same, and it's a 16 to 28. So these two lenses here pretty much can cover me on a full shoot, you know, different needs. The image is fantastic. I think it pairs really well with my Ursa G2 and with the FX3. I just have to set up the settings a certain way and then I'm good to go. But again, if you're on the fence about this camera and worried about, you know, all the kind of negativity that people are throwing shade at this camera, it is a wonderful camera for the price. You're not going to beat it. As far as SDI goes and only using an SDI monitor, you can use an HDMI monitor on this. Do not worry, not a big deal. I do recommend that Pixis monitor when it comes out. It's just going to make your life so much easier. I can't wait to get my hands on it, but I do love this monitor. We'll see when that comes and I'll do a review on that. If you have any questions, comments, or you know, any recommendations or suggestions, I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks again. Please subscribe and give us some love. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys on the next one.